enough shenanigans. This is a company. We're building it.
You're working with some pretty huge brands.
Before that, we had never considered working together.
It was like really intense data biz.
Curious if that scared you at all?
I'm gonna take this one.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? I'm Britton Stepetic, and this is Loki Legends, the show where I sit down with creative legends to fish out nuggets of wisdom that you can take away on your creative journey. Coming all the way from the lands of data, I am joined by the dynamic data duo, Liz and Gavin. Liz is a brand designer and illustrator with 15 years of experience working with companies from pre-seed to Fortune 500. She's continually seeking to help brands find their unique visual identity. And then we have the other half of the duo, Gavin. Gavin is a designer who is a little obsessed with the details. From pixel to full data viz, Gavin has been working in the design industry the past 18 years, amplifying big ideas through data and design. As you can see, I'm a little bit caffeinated and amped up to chat. So Liz and Gavin, thank you. I appreciate you being here.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're excited to officially speak to you on record now.
Yes, exactly. Our off-the-record call full of dark and mysterious data wizardry.
Yeah.
That's just for us. I thought we could paint a little picture for folks of where Datalands is today, and then sort of like work backward. We're not going to go in chronological order by any means because I enjoy jumping around too much. But you're a mom and pop shop. It's just you two running Datalands. You're married. You have a kid. You're working out in the woods in New York somewhere, nondescript location, the lands of data. And you're working with some pretty huge brands like Lululemon, Nike, Shopify, Microsoft, and that's just to name a few. And I was curious, what was the first ever client that you worked with together as a team? And then maybe we could kind of look at a client that you really enjoyed working with recently and do almost like a side-by-side comparison of kind of like that whole stretch of journey and fill in the gaps from there.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because like pre-Datalands, we had been collaborating for a while as illustrators primarily. And so pre-Datalands, I'd say like 2 years, 2016, 2015, maybe.
Yeah.
2017. Our friend was art director at this magazine called Howler magazine, and it was a soccer focused. It was really cool, and I think it still might be in print. But yeah, but he asked us both. He was like, "I want you both to work on this full page data viz spread," and we were like, "Okay, that sounds like a cool challenge." And that was our first real collaborative data centric project, and it was pretty amazing, especially working with a friend who was able to elevate our ideas, our design into the magazine, and also allow us to kind of do what we do. He gave us he trusted us, and it was like before that we had never considered working together in that sense.
In like the data viz, like the more complex stuff. We had worked together on more illustration focused things or like infographics that are, they were like for listicle kind of things, stuff like that. That's not like low stakes kind of transactional work with clients. And then this work for Howler was like really intense data biz, and they wanted it to be almost look like it was done by someone that does like processing or like coding, but with like the flair of like cool visuals and make it more handmade, like in the way that like Gavin had been working at the time. So it was really interesting because it was like we realized there was a thing that hadn't been really explored that much. You have your data viz of your that was obviously all hand done, but lately it's more code based.
Mm-hmm.
So like that really intense stuff is code based. So we were like, wow, this is really cool to like do it by hand. Like look at an Excel spreadsheet, look at all these stats. And like that's Gavin's favorite thing is like looking at stats and decoding it and like figuring out the story behind it. So it was like, wow, okay, maybe this is a thing that we'd like to do. I don't know. Kind of started exploring it more.
Yeah. So shout out Joel Spiesmaker.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. And Howler.
But in your work specifically, it does seem that there is a unique perspective and a storytelling aspect of that. And that's a very human thing. And I'm curious the relationship between client and you guys and the kind of foundational creation of that story and the perspective behind the data. And I feel like data can get used as a weapon or it can get used as an empowering tool. And all of your work seems to be empowering, whether it's for pointing out the disparity in women working 3 jobs versus in getting paid for the equivalent of 1, or COVID statistics and proving that there's a lot of like fake misrepresentation of information out there. So that was 2 questions sort of wrapped into one, but the real foundational question here, I think, is, are you working with your client to push one specific story that they have, or are you working in tandem to craft that story together to showcase the narrative?
I'm going to take this one because that's the dream, is to be able to craft the story with the client. Like I come from more of like the brand side of things, and which has morphed into marketing in a way. And I see our studio as, I call it out a lot, but I don't know if it's as clear as I think it should be. But the brand design meets data viz, because I think there is a really good opportunity to showcase like beautiful, important data, send it out to the world, to have the world receive that story in the form of data, and then, you know, like the company gets marketing out of it, of course, if it's pretty and it's, you know, scroll stopping and such. But like we don't like when a client gives us a message that we have to just like here, make this pretty because we need to advertise using this data and it doesn't work as is, so make it look good. We don't do that. There's no that's like goes against our I don't know if there's like a designer's code I guess. But like the reason why we started Datalands to begin with our other partner, who like we all wanted to find a way to educate people in an elevated way, use the data that is out there, make it accessible, help educate, help, you know, move things along. So like the dream is to be able to only put out the best data and the best stories and visualize those. Obviously we're, you know, that since I went on that spiel, clearly we do more of the here we need this visualized, but sort of work. But we would love to get more into like the content of it, like pick out that data, like find the story within the sheet. That would be ideal. But that's on me. More of those projects. So if anyone's listening and they want to do that.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I like to say that we are finding the shape of the data, and you know, through that is finding the story, finding the narrative. But we sort of have an open-minded approach when we're looking at the data, and it's like, I'm not even looking at it, oh, this has to be a bar graph, or this has to be a line chart, you know. I'm looking at it like, here's the data, I'm going to explore this and see what takes shape.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I like to call Gavin the data man, just because he is kind of like, you hand him a a spreadsheet, and then he just looks at the spreadsheet and just, he's not a data analyst, but just can see something that I don't see, and then kind of just starts to make these shapes in a Figma file or something. And you're like, how did you do that in that long list of text? It's just kind of like a cool skill that
the shape of the data is very clear and evident, and I'll put up like a bunch of images and of work, so if you're watching on YouTube or wherever, you can kind of see the examples. But actually working with data and translating data into something visually appealing is something that I suck at. Like, it's something that I dread doing. So I have gone to your like Instagram or website like a bunch of times, like the couple minimal times that I've had to do it. I'm like, how the fuck do they make this shape or make this happen or try to get to this solution? Because like all I could think of is to make like a bar graph and do a little bit of like line work and shading and try to get to a solution. So maybe it's something that's intuitive to you, or are there kind of areas or things that you're thinking about when shaping the form of that data to find creative solutions?
When I was in college, I had dropped out a little early, and I had gotten this opportunity to work with Good Magazine. You know, they had seen my work, or I sent them my work, and then they were like, hey, we want you to make a series of infographics with us. And so I think because at the time I had this more illustrated approach, I have sort of seen data a little differently. In like back then, it was more illustration focused, and visualizing the story for quick consumption, editorializing it. And then as it's evolved with Datalands, it's gotten a little bit more serious in the sense that we have to respect the data more. There's more data, there's larger outputs. And so
higher stakes.
And so it's like we sort of had that early experience with data, and that sort of shaped how we approached it a little more freely. And then I think that really helped us to have our approach that we have now and how we treat it now.
Yeah, and I would help while he dropped out of school and I did not, because I'm a good kid. I would help him. We've been dating forever. We've been together since a long time. So so I would help him with like sketching and reading the briefs and just kind of brainstorming with him, late nights, stuff like that. I'd be working on my school presentation, making like a brand for like a little bottle or something, and he'd be like working on something that actually paid him. Like, yes, this is what we're all going to school for, and I'm not doing it yet. But it was really cool to get to like see what real briefs looked like at the time and help with that stuff. So it was like I had my formal education, and then he had his like on the job education, which I think really helped us just realize that it was an avenue that we could do this for real. We didn't start working together for a while, which I think is funny thinking back, because we should have just been like, we're a duo, but we didn't. But yeah, it's that editorial kind of thinking and visualizing the data, visualizing like these like little data points and like these nice little stories for magazines. It was a really good intro into what you could do. And then it allowed us to then eventually elevate to this new level where we are now. Where accuracy is like the most important thing, and then the visual.
I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but it seems like you guys kind of naturally fell into this niche of kind of data meets brand, but I'm sure there's a much more complicated story and then a lot of connections and dots and strategy that kind of made that possible. I guess what spark of revelation or something got you to think about, oh, this is something that should be done? It's not like something that people will pay us $50 for because they need like one infographic. What was kind of that insightful incident that made you think, oh, Datalands can work?
I think it's when, honestly, I think it's when we had a child. I think before that, we had an equally successful studio. It was that illustration kind of forward work, doing work for like all these really big major brands, and like, again, like really transactional stuff, like illustration for like something that's going to live for like a campaign, and it's going to be within the brand guidelines. Maybe it's a little bit more quirky, it's fun, it's almost silly sometimes, and that was great for a long time. But then we had a kid, and we realized like health insurance is a thing. We have a mortgage, we have all this stuff, and it wasn't that we weren't doing well with our previous studio called Script and Seal. It's just that we would spend so much time working on these things, and they were so frequent and overwhelming. I couldn't keep up with it anymore. Honestly, I couldn't. Like, I had a baby on me at all times, and I'm like, I cannot respond to these people. Like, I cannot respond to these clients. I can't like stay up all night again and do, a revision on this, Google campaign or something. It kind of just, that spark of young hustle, it left me. I think Gavin still there a little bit, but we started to like really explore what we did together that worked really well. And then, I mean, I got a job, an in-house job as a brand designer, and I started working on like these, again, like transactional like tasks, but they were simple, they were clear. It was like I clock in, clock out kind of thing. I got the health insurance that I desperately wanted, and it kind of made us like, it gave us a minute to think about stuff, and realize like, okay, we have some skills here that are like really high level, and we've been honing for a long time. And I guess that's when we started talking to our friend Leandro Castellao. He was our third partner at Datalands, like in the formation of everything. And he amazing at data viz and illustration, more of like an abstract sort of art way. And yeah, it was like we all kind of started being like, okay, we do data viz really well, or like infographics really well. How can we take this to a different place? Like, what can we do with this? And then, yeah, we just started working together on like one thing. And then that was a cool project. It was for like a crypto company. And it was like really early crypto in like 2019. And they're like, we like this is cool. This is fun. And then, yeah, it just kind of worked from there. And then Datalands was born, and then COVID hit.
Right.
And then we had a lot of data to work with, but not a lot of clients. So we were starting to do stuff like Gavin and Leandro started doing a lot of work, like on the initial, just like kind of personal side of the brand stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, we really used our Instagram to explore, clients are one thing, client work is one thing, but then we're also, we're wanting to shape data, we're wanting to play with it. And so our Instagram became sort of our experimental playground. And at the same time, we wanted to provide something of value, something important, something of importance, like relevant data, meaningful data, of current events, things that were informative and like we thought necessary to see, like these big things, like, when COVID came out. we had a different viewpoint on some of the data that was being shared, and like we wanted to share that with everyone because it was very eye-opening to us, like how contagious COVID was as opposed to how deadly, past viruses were.
Yeah.
And
I think that early exploration time, especially when, Leandro had his own freelance practice still going. I had a job, so Gavin and Leandro just felt free to like experiment and do stuff, and then I would come in and be like, hey, let's do this, let's try this thing, look at this little bit of data that I just pulled, this is really cool. And we started forming it like a brand experiment. And it was really interesting because we were like, we can, if we have time to explore this, we can then like show people what we can do without the constraints of client work that tell us how to design the brand. So it allowed us to really build like an interesting, like wild style that we get to experiment with a lot. And it was really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, COVID was hard, but we were just like home.
Just
doing stuff.
To sort of elaborate on our early viewpoint, and why we were starting out, why we started Datalands is, we saw an opportunity. There are sort of two ends of this data visualization spectrum, where one end is very serious and academic, and it's like you have to be a coder to really visualize that data, and a lot of it's interactive. It's just very, very complex. And then on the other end, you have those quick consumption infographics that, are usually like an illustration with a number next to it, sort of the stuff that we used to do. And so we always saw like the serious, the coding-based data visualization as very intimidating. And we kept to our infographic end. But at that point, it was like we had this epiphany, or we realized it was like, we could fill that gap in between. There is a gap there. And why don't we just do it and embrace it? That's what we enjoy doing. And so let's not be intimidated by it. Let's just go for it.
Yeah, we're visual designers at the heart of who we are. And we can do really complex things and at the time in Illustrator. It was just like, we can do this in Vector. We don't have to do this in code. Like, it's actually, maybe it might be easier in code because it's already, someone built the thing already and we can just output it. But no, let's just take the hard route and like torture ourselves a little bit and just make it really cool.
I mean, it sounds like it's the harmonious balance of the story plus what you're good at plus something that you're interested in, kind of falling into synergistic alignment, for lack of a better way to describe it. And I mean, if you're interested in that kind of world and you have the skill set visually to translate it, it seems like a great niche because there probably wasn't a huge spectrum of people focusing in on that specifically. Like there's lots of designers, there's lots of visual people, but they may not have the data analytic brain or the storytelling kind of mindset to translate that all through the lens of brand and story and data coming together. So, I mean, it's a very particular and cool niche. I'm curious if that scared you at all, because it might be perceived as limiting. And I think this is tying into like, how do clients find you for that? Or who are the type of people that are finding you for that? And where are they finding you on the internet in general? I think is kind of like where this is all going.
I will say that, we have data in our name. So
that good keyword.
SEO.
That was obviously that was intentional. We want people to see data, as they are sharing our name or talking about us.
I'll say that it is very limiting in the sense that at the heart of everything, I personally am a brand designer and I love brands. I love like building the whole thing. And when you put data in your name, people only think of one thing that you can do, and that's totally fine. And we, for like data forward brands, we're a great partner, I will say. But I will like, the others, they're like fun brands that, I want to just like dabble in every once in a while. And there's a whole portfolio from our past that can show that stuff. But I think sticking to the niche is something that if you're going to do it, you have to just do it and be okay with that niche. And I think that's something that a lot of people right now they're being told to niche down, get your specialty and get it right, do it. But then it's like really hard to stick to that niche because if you're a generalist, like I'm more of a generalist and I really like to do everything. And I'm like, I'm over here and then I'm over there and I'm like excited about everything in the world and I want to know everything. But if you're like hyper focused on something, it really helps with finding those clients that want to work with your type of studio. It keeps us a little bit more focused because Gavin is like so good at the data bit, like the data thinking, like finding a shape that makes sense from like a sheet. I think that goes back to like your whole childhood being hyper obsessed with like football stats.
We will definitely take a segue there.
Yeah, I mean, you go. I'm happy to just step back and let you talk about that. But this guy is a data head, and that's awesome. I'm like so happy to have that because like it makes niching down a lot easier because there are so many parts to running a business that people don't think about, and when you're trying to do it all, and then also trying to run a business or also trying to figure out, you have to do payroll, you have to pay your taxes, you have to go like find leads, you have to have those new client calls, you have to have like decks ready to go, capability decks, you have to email clients back within like 20 minutes or so, or else they're going to move on to the next person. And then there's the work. So it's like there's so much to do that if you don't niche down, you're setting yourself up for like this monster of a task. But if you niche down and then you're unhappy with that, that's not good.
Yeah.
So it's very good. It's very helpful for me to have that niche because I'm like a hummingbird. I'm like all over the place. So it's good for me. Yeah. And I would suggest a lot of people niche down when they find their thing.
Yeah.
Do not niche until you find your thing. It's my word of warning.
I feel like that is definitely a key part of the process. Like, I don't think Rogue is as niche as it could be because it's like branding meets digital in that homogenous ecosystem that's created. So it's like digital branding, but sometimes we do e-commerce, but we're probably not the most like strategic, like data driven e-commerce, like results driven. Everything we do is like aspirational, like hyper kind of targeted at making the end consumer feel either a type of emotion or feel like this is something that I can ultimately vibe with really, really quickly. So I mean, like that translates to sales, but it's not like I'm going to, raise your revenue by 1%. I can't guarantee that. I don't think probably other companies could guarantee that because they know like the tricks, but that's all leading to the conclusion of like knowing what you're super interested in. I have shiny object syndrome for sure. I'm like a golden retriever of a human being. So I like want to help people and do everything like you, Liz, that this seems like. But I mean, like having that niche definitely feels like having like guardrails or bumpers if you're like bowling. So it is like a safety net in that way. And I think that a lot of people probably need that and need to, as like you had said, find their thing, narrow it in. And that, I don't think it needs to be immediate. It's like you can just continue to do it, maybe not show other things and just curate your portfolio so it really is attracting the type of client that will, one, pay you appropriately and two, you enjoy it.
Yeah, I think that's what the early experiments really did. And maybe it didn't go far enough down the road that we wanted, like that we needed to, but that was also like building the company as like in general. Like it takes a long time for a company to, get to a certain spot where it's, sustainable, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And when like COVID hit, like, okay, well, I guess we're going to push our plans off a little bit more. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
One of us gets a job. One of us, another one gets a different job, and then another one gets a much more lucrative job. And then it's like things are starting to fall into place, and then things don't necessarily materialize in the way that you want them to or need them
Mm-hmm.
to. And it's sort of like, yeah, it's like building a business is difficult in general. And then when you are discovering a new niche, there's a lot of like trial and error to it. It's just like marketing. It's like A/B testing. Like, what are you showing people? What type of clients are you actually getting when you show that work? Who's responding to, your LinkedIn post? Who's responding to your mail, or like your email blast announcing some new work? Like, what is resonating with people? And it's taken a long time. I think it's recently materializing in the way that we've been hoping for, because we're not like we're very aspirational people, but when it comes to the marketing of ourselves, terrible. We don't know how to like talk about. Wait, this is like the first time we're ever really talking about as a company. In general, yeah, we know
It's hard though.
Yeah.
It's super challenging because I mean, as a service-based business, we're always focused on the client. I mean,
Right.
you just launched a beautiful new Dataland site. At least I think it's beautiful. I really enjoy it. It's super clear about like what you do, and it's fun all at the same time, which I think is like a balance of what you guys are doing in general. So kudos to that.
We had a designer help us like with the initial coding of like its framer, Apero Studio. But he was really great. But it helped us. Like, we never have ever hired anyone to like help us with our website, and we were like, no, we have to get someone, please. I was like, we have to. I can't do an 8-month long process. And then he did it. Handed it over in like September last year.
Yeah.
And then Gavin tinkered on it for 6 months.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, our previous websites were all one-pagers, and we would give a glimpse into our work. We had slideshows with some projects, and it was pretty basic. And that was the intention. But as we've grown as a studio, we've had larger scale projects, more intensive projects that really deserve that longer form, case study page. And so like the website is one thing, and finding how you talk about yourself and your specialties or your capabilities. But then the other part is how you talk about your work and finding the right photos to craft the story of the projects that you've done. And so, yeah, because you hand off the work to the client, and that takes one shape, but then how you present that in your portfolio is like totally different, and that is essentially an additional project that you have to also do. So it was like we had been putting some of those off for a long time, and that's like what took the majority of the last 8 months.
And also like the little micro interactions that you adding into the website, like just like playing around in Framer.
It's definitely hard. I mean, we launched a new Rogue site in February, and I want to change it already because I feel like I've evolved as a person and know how to speak to the audience a little bit better. And I feel like I'm continuing to like focus in on who the hell the target specific person that Rogue is going after is. And generally it's split between founders who are super stoked about the opportunity to have a brand that lives up to how they feel about their company and that feeling of that, what their brand should be. And then the other half is like, heads of brands within really big organizations, and they obviously know that design is important. And then it's like, how do I target those people? Because like I'm friends with a bunch of those type of people, but then they don't hire me. And so it's like, what's the deal, guys? But so it's like those two different groups of people, and making sure they're represented.
So that is something I have been deep diving into, because again, golden retriever, shiny object person over here, I'm like, what's, how do we optimize this? What are we doing here? What is going on? And I'm like, I realize it's a product marketing issue. I've worked with enough marketing people to like on landing pages and new product launches and making some flashy, cool visuals for those things. And I'm like, wait, what if I put some of those ideas into what we're doing? Like, we have a service offering. It's not a product. It's not like a SaaS product, but it's an offering. It's something that's very specific. And like, what is that? What would that sound like if a product marketer were to, take a look at what we do and our product? It's been an intriguing little exercise, because I started making a services page, which was initially just to kind of ease the amount of new client or like leads calls that I have to take that are a little emotionally draining for me.
Yep.
I'm like, hi, nice to meet you. Can you tell me about your project? Let me tell you about Datalands. Here's the entire thing. And it never really changes. It's like, obviously, whoever I'm talking to is a new person. So I'm going to connect with them on whatever level they're on. But I feel like it's, I can not automate it, but I can provide some of that information on a separate page. But it comes down to, it's like, it is marketing. Like, weirdly enough, that's like a marketing issue. And I think just like coming up with that language that clearly defines the value that we bring and the services that we offer. And I'm also starting to think about, like, should we say our pricing? Should we start doing some of that? Like, why is that a secret? Why do we hoard that information? That seems silly, because we're like a duo. And then if we need to bring in outside help, it's going to be an additional amount, obviously. So why not just be upfront about like what we charge for our expertise, and then whatever else is whatever else. But I don't know. It's like a really interesting challenge, and I would suggest everyone try it. Like, a little like LinkedIn course on product marketing or something, or like look at what SaaS products say about their stuff, and kind of like think about how you think about your freelance practice or your studio practice, or like, what is your niche? Why is it important? Who are your customer segments? I mean, I've also worked in-house, like with a lot of marketers, so I kind of have that brain now. It's like I can't avoid it. But
yeah, I think because we're both designers, we definitely lacked that biz dev education. And so over the years, at least Liz has taken on more of that focus to try to understand, how to fulfill that role, and it,
yeah. Sometimes not willingly. I'm still the other designer, I'm still like doing half of the work.
One day I wake up and I'm like, all I want to do is like send emails and send invoices today. Like, I really don't want to design. And then other days I'm like, I'm not even going to touch my email. I'm just going to crank this out and like have a great time, put on a playlist and just like design. Is that the same for you guys, or do you just always want to design and not do the business stuff?
I'm always in design mode.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, Gavin is, there's no chance. I think that's kind of why I've taken over like the de facto like operational side or like administrative kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I really like talking to people.
Mm.
I don't know what it is. I like getting on a new client call, even though I'm trying to build this services page, but I still like talking to these new people and like being like, tell me about your product. Wait, so why?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe in a different life I was going to be like a psychologist or something. But
well, it's like building the services page is going to get it so that you're doing fewer because more people are going to understand the expectations and reality of it. So it's like, okay, it's these services. I mean, you talked about maybe putting pricing. I've thought about that too. And I feel like I might adjust some things where it's like, here's the bracket that most projects fall in. It could be way more, it could be less depending on your needs, but it's not going to be less than this. So it's like, I mean, you guys are data wizards, so you could figure out a cool way to make that happen.
I have been building a type form for like a choose your own adventure kind of thing.
Cool.
It's very complicated. You don't even know about this. Half the thing.
Breaking news.
I have been sitting in type form. This was like a couple weeks ago. I started building it. But yeah, it's like answer some of these questions, get a little closer to what the person's actually trying to get out of us, and then get a pretty accurate quote. Why not?
Yeah.
I would just like to save some, even if it's not like that initial client call. It's the building that almost like a pitch deck. It's not exactly pitch decks, but it's more like, here are the services that you're requesting. Here's some proof that we've done that stuff. Here are some published reports or whatever you're looking for. Here's also a detailed breakdown of our estimate, how much this might cost, what vendors we might need to bring in. But I do think it's kind of formulaic anyway. So why not?
Yeah.
Part of niching down, that it helps you to have a better understanding of why the clients are coming to you, and to have more of that formula that you can craft, an effective pitch deck.
Yeah.
All of the other goodies that come with running a business and being profitable and sustainable.
Right.
But kind of jumping backward, so it sounds like the very early foundation, there was 3 of you. Liz, you're working in a job. Gavin, is this your full-time thing? It sounds like your other partner was also doing a freelance operation of their own. I mean, I guess the things in there that I wanted to pull out for the audience is that you're running a business while you're still working. Your partner is also freelancing. So it's not like that's your only source of income. If this doesn't work, you're homeless, you're just sleeping outside, hungry. So that's not the worst case scenario. You're covered. But I think that's something that people need to hear, is that you can build something while still either working a day job or doing something that, that it isn't like your end all be all goal, but can turn into something down the road.
Basically, we had a baby, and then I was like, health insurance, stability. So I kept that job, and then kind of was like moonlighting, I guess, with Datalands, and our other partner was doing freelance. I think he was doing editorial stuff,
freelance editorial, illustration.
Yeah, I think you were too, though.
And
but
a little
not
bit,
really.
Yeah, we're both kind of doing it a little bit, I guess. And it was more supplemental, while we were building Datalands and while we were figuring it out, basically.
Yeah.
And then as we grew, we became more focused on Datalands, and we found the need for a producer, a part-time producer. So we were sort of expanding in that realm too, and And also bringing on a producer helped us see the business differently. It was like all of a sudden, we had someone who was capable of talking to clients on another level. And we felt it, it really elevated us to a place that we didn't foresee.
So I'm moonlighting with Datalands. We're working on a brand project with an old friend of Gavin and I, and I got a job offer from him to work on, continue working on the brand. So I took that, which is like, it's like what you don't do when you're trying to build a business. You don't get poached, but it was just fun. So that was great. And then I kind of brought Leandro, our other partner, into that company because we were just like continuing with the brand that we were making. And so, yeah, it was just like all the pieces of Datalands were there. And it was growing, but because we weren't all like hyper focused on it, it was just kind of like a practice. We were building a business, but we were also kind of viewing it as like our outlet to like, what do we foresee our lives looking like? Do we want to build this thing? So let's try to. So Gavin was basically like there sustaining the momentum. And then, yeah, there were just like other opportunities that just kept popping up for like everybody. So it became kind of like, at a certain point, I was like, well, what do I want to do? Do I want to continue with like tech companies and what they pay? And like, that life, there's a familiarity to it for me, and I was continuing with it, but then basically Leandro got another job offer, and it was an amazing job offer, and we were like, dude, just that's amazing. And I had to kind of figure out like, okay, well, what do I want to do? Do we want to keep this thing going? Do we want to grow it? Do we want it to be a real business? Do we want it to still be our art practice? Do we want it, what are we going to do with this thing? So I made the decision to quit my job and do this full time. I was like, okay, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it. It's going to be like, it's going to be a business. And we have to take it like extraordinarily seriously. And I think that's what's happened in the past couple of years. I think that was 2021, 2022.
2022, I think.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
2022.
Yeah.
So that was like, Datalands had been going, and it was awesome. There were like projects sustaining it from 2019 to 2022, but then 2022 hit, and it was like, enough shenanigans. This is a company. We're building it. We're like doing it right. So
who were some of those early clients? Because when are some of these kind of like gigantic names coming into the picture, like Nike, Lululemon, and those type of brands?
I think a lot of early clients had known of us individually, like pre-Datalands, through our, individual practices.
Yeah, we all had successful freelance careers before. And then when Gavin and I started our previous studio, Script and Seal, we consolidated it, but everyone still knew us as separate. And and then Leandro had his own amazingly successful practice as well. So it was kind of like, let's consolidate, let's see what happens. Like, we'll just try this new thing. It was almost a risk because it was like, does anyone know this name? Like, we know our names versus this new thing. So it was also an experiment like that. Like, are we good at this branding thing? What can we do with this? So I think a lot of that stuff, I think it was really word of mouth from our past, and just like finding that niche and being vocal about it and saying like, hey, everyone, you've known us doing this stuff and you've known us working in data viz, but we're really focusing on that now. Here are some examples. If anyone ever wants to collaborate, hit us up. We're here. And I think all of those projects, like Lululemon, was Kevin. Totally.
Like, I think a lot of our first projects, especially, were us funneling in a client that we had been talking with, like, individually, and let's do this together, that sort of thing. So, we were each bringing in different projects.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, like, through people we knew, through former clients.
I will say networking it's a horrible horrible term, but it's really like making friends in your industry and just being friendly and being open about the work that you want to do, and not being so worried that people are going to judge you. Because I think even like Microsoft was Gavin's first boss. I was there. I was his intern. So, and then he was the guy who we worked for, Nando Costa. He's like an amazingly talented motion designer and creative director, and he wanted to work with this new Datalands thing that we had come up with. So that's how that kind of formed.
And that was cool because it ended up being like a 6-month partnership.
Yeah.
Which, was very helpful as it became our, primary. It was like sustaining for us.
And it was fun too, because it was like you got to experiment, because the basis of what Datalands was like experimental visuals and seeing what you can do with concepts. And
it was like, for this Microsoft project, it was every week, we had a new challenge and how we wanted to illustrate or design these concepts. And so we would just spend the whole week like making hundreds of these different shapes based on one of the
prompts. It was like a prompt, basically.
So, it was like this reoccurring thing, and it was a lot of fun because we were just playing around, and then it was for a client at the same time.
That's perfect. You hit the jackpot there.
That was cool. I think there was like a lot of those things, and if we didn't lean into our network and share what was going on and how things were going and all that stuff, it wouldn't have worked. The whole thing wouldn't have worked. So
No, I mean, you got to make your network work for you. We can't be afraid to share what we do. I mean, if we're making creative work, it should be exciting to us and ultimately exciting to others if we're sharing it, because it's going to probably be seen by our peers and friends first, and then kind of cycle out into the rest of the world from there. And you never know who's going to see something and want to collaborate. But if you don't show it, you're not going to receive any of the benefits.
And I will say, we are so bad about showing work. So there have been very slow times for us, I have to be honest, because we almost like forget to share work because we're busy. And then like, we have like intertwined lives. And I think that's a danger of being a married couple, running a business together, having a child together, all this stuff, because you get caught up in like that day-to-day stuff, and you're like, oh, wait a second, I have to also learn how to do marketing. I have to also promote stuff, and our studio is that cringy, and
fine line of it all.
Have to.
Right. Or I've been wanting to write like longer form articles.
You have like 18.
Yeah, I've started a lot of them, but I think it's an interesting way of sharing how we're thinking about data or how we're thinking about these individual projects. And but just haven't shared any of those. It's a fun exercise though to really document.
I find that writing is like the best way for me to translate everything that's going on in my head and kind of share it in a way that makes sense. Because if I don't like take the time to write out like an article type format of what the hell I did on the project, I can never get to like the 3-sentence, like, here's the highlight with the images. It takes me writing like a whole like 1,000 words to get to the one Twitter sentence that is less than 144 characters, just because I can't process it without just putting it all out there.
I assume that you do this often. It's not just...
Yeah, this is an all the time thing too. Because I have a marketing calendar that I built into Asana. So I know when I'm trying to say things on certain days, when I can reuse a thing that I've said 3 months ago, because no one will remember because our attention spans are this big. That's a nugget that that people can take away, is you can just say the same thing more than once and no one will care.
Yeah. Oh man, that reminds me, when we had a producer and a designer on staff, and we decided it was a slow phase, usually July or August are a little bit slower for us. And so we had come up with a content calendar, and we were really focused on it for 1 week, outlining every single thing we were going to post. And then it fell off.
Yeah.
It's really tough though to keep it sustained, because you really need to have enough things that are either backlog of things that you can show or new things that are coming out, and then just breaking it into small pieces. I don't know how certain studios can kind of show 3 things a week and it seems like it's always fresh and different, but maybe they just have the volume and the people on staff to kind of handle that.
I think it's that. I think what we discovered is having people around that are, working with you, maybe not necessarily on staff for us. We had a long-term designer, Francisco, shout out, Francisco Roca, he's amazing, that we could say, hey, we really need to get some social stuff together. We have all this stuff and I can't think about it because I have to do all this other stuff. And oh my God, and Gavin is working on this thing, and our kid just got sick. Oh no. And then, but it would be that person doesn't have the junk that comes along with running the business, and they can just remix or make something really amazing out of something that has already been made. And it's just that kind of ability to have people around you that can help with those things, or can build those systems. That's truly invaluable. That is a key to running a business, or all the other people too. It's just it's not just the owners.
I find that the business baggage does take up a lot of mental capacity, just kind of handling all of that on a day-to-day basis, where it makes it very easy for the things to slip through the cracks, like you had said, the marketing, the content calendar, the case studies that need to go on the website, just redoing your website in general, remembering to email past clients and just check in on them and see if they need anything. But all of the things, and maybe I'll need to make a checklist to remind myself in the future. But
you make a checklist for me.
Yeah, maybe that's a thing that I'll make, the business basics checklist, and that can be a free download.
Monetize that Notion template or something. I don't know.
That'd be nice.
Like that. I like that. I like that idea of entrepreneurial that I don't have.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or sending out a holiday gift, to past clients. It's that's one thing every year we think of, and it's let's say it's August, and we're oh, we have to start thinking about this now, and then all of a sudden it's November and it's too late. And every single year we miss out on that opportunity too.
Totally.
I have never sent a gift. It makes me feel bad every time. It's it could be a sticker with a handwritten note and people would love it. But just taking the time to think about those little micro, I guess, either gifts or interactions that add the bit of hospitality or just personal flair. Yeah. That's the hard stuff to think about if you don't have a producer or a studio manager, and when you're busy with all the other things. But they actually do make an astronomical difference and impact, just because of it's a gesture that you're just not going to be getting or receiving often. So it makes it special.
Yeah, and it's like it's a great opportunity to do something a little different than you normally do, and having those clients see that, oh, they do this really cool thing too, and then it's building that partnership.
Again, shout out to Leandro, because he was the person with like the physical gifts ideas, like always had these amazing ideas for stuff. Yeah, I'm sitting next to a box of things that we made when Datalands first started that we never sent out to anyone. They were supposed to be like little gifts to be like, hey, look at our new studio, it's so cool. Yeah.
Is it something that's reusable and you can send out now?
Actually really cool.
Yeah, we had this little arrow thingy and we turned it into this standing desk ornament.
Yeah, let me just
and Leandro made all this really nice packaging.
He's a gift. He's a gift.
We did send out a bunch, but
we did, but it was like we have a surplus.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just take the wrapper out. You can edit this in.
Yeah, we had them laser cut, and
that's so dope.
Had these two pieces that fit together, and then it could just stand on your desk.
Oh yeah, but that was the reason why I miscalculated like 3 times how big the little thing had to be.
Yeah, sorry, the size of the size of the little stand that clips in, it has to be perfect. And then, when you're sending it out to the laser company, it's like there's a 0.1 millimeter chance of error, and every time it would be off.
Oh, that's maddening.
We sent it out like 3 times, had 3 different orders come in, and eventually I think what did we do? We just had to modify them ourselves.
What? Yeah. That's so sick.
And it says Datalands on it. But
okay. It's not showing up on camera, but it's cool because it's like white on white, right?
Yeah. But, so that was like, I kept having some reservations because I was like, it's white on white. It's not.
That's cool.
Not really visible in the way that I'd like it to be.
Dang.
And then so I started experimenting with like adding ink to it. To like, I don't know.
Yeah. We always.
I can see it a little bit. Yeah. It's cool because it's like above, it's raised up, right?
It's actually embossed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's like the texture is different.
Dang, that's a sick gift. Well, now you have gifts just lying around. You can send to people whenever you remember.
Yeah.
Every few months we would get some new stickers and new products just to try out, like a new shirt design.
That's me though. That's my fault. I get a little
beta testing, product testing.
I think this is an important question. What got you both into design? Because I feel like that's a pivotal part of the story. And I mean, how did you both meet is another pivotal part of the story that we can fill in. But let's start with Gavin. What got you into design in general? And then we can jump over to Liz.
When I was in high school, it was probably 10th grade. I was really into wrestling, WWF, WWE type wrestling. And there was this popular thing where there would be wrestling news websites and rumors and news and information. And so I started my own wrestling news website with a buddy and also with an editor. So, we had me and my friend who were the designers, and then this other guy who kind of took care of the news. And it was called hardcoreheadlines.net.
And I like it. That's a good name.
So we had a really good design and we had a lot of fun doing it. And it became a pretty big website. Like, honestly, we had around 2,000 hits a day back then. So that was pretty decent. But after 2 weeks into it, my friend and I realized that we didn't enjoy like running this website. We just liked the designing part. So we both left it. And the editor or the writer person, the news person we had, is still doing that today, and like a very well-known wrestling news person.
Wow.
You should reach out and be like, hey, I'm so sorry.
I did.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's amazing. So
it's too big for me now.
Oh.
So that entrepreneurial spirit has kind of been in you since the beginning.
Yeah, and I mean, my family runs an eyeglass business, so I would always hang out there every day. So I kind of always saw that freer approach to work
In life.
and life.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes sense. No, that's super cool.
and
What ab-
but so that kind of also led into Yehure, which was a design-focused message board in a sense. And back in the day, it was so the founders of Threadless. I don't know if you remember Threadless, the T-shirt, submit your own T-shirt design, and they were huge at the time. And so they had a message board too. It was called Yehure, and it was sort of that first viewpoint into understanding that design was a profession, because all of these people were like in Chicago. They were designers, working at agencies, etc. And I was like, oh, that's actually a really cool job, that you can basically make art for real world clients. And so, yeah, it showed me a different viewpoint into design. And it was around that time when I was applying to college for the first time. So I was like, yeah, this is going to be what I do.
This is it.
And then you won a Threadless competition.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, sick.
Yeah, that was cool. Like after my first year of design school in the summer, I was very poor. And
so poor.
And we had to make it through the summer without any school work. Sometimes you could work a few hours a week at the school. And yeah, so I started submitting some T-shirts, and one actually won.
Yeah,
which was pretty amazing.
It launched his career. Like,
damn, that's amazing.
Yeah, and then because at the time the people that were winning Threadless competitions, they were all like, they would become like the people to watch, and so that kind of bumped up his name into a like a household name. I mean, it was kind of crazy, but it was really cool. It was cool to see. I was very proud of you.
Yeah,
and I wore that shirt all the time.
And I got I got this big, credit for Threadless, and I ordered all my favorite designer shirts.
And he bought me a couple gifts. And I was like, oh, you must really like me. And you made like $1,200.
Yeah,
that was a ton of money for us.
Oh yeah,
it was like, and I mean, still, like, that was like, wow, eye-opening.
Gavin Potenza, the Threadless superstar.
You got another one too, right?
No, it ended there. My Threadless reign. I submitted a few others, and I had all this confidence going into those. I was like, I have one, I can for sure get another one or two printed, and the momentum didn't carry, fortunately.
Gotcha.
Whatever.
Dethroned.
Yeah.
Dethroned. Yeah. For me, I don't know. It was, my journey has been a lot less straightforward, I think. I think a lot of small events led me to this, where I am. So my mom was always in marketing and advertising. She worked for Olympus Camera. She would do their ads in the 80s and early 90s. And so I watched my mom be like a working woman of the 90s, and that, like, shoulder pads, hair, big glasses, very cool New York City lady. And so I watched her do that. But my dad was an entrepreneur. He's retired now, but he would kind of build businesses and just kind of see them through, and then build another one and see that through. But it was kind of interesting, like, I kept getting like back and forth thoughts on which path to take. Like, I love the strong woman that my mom is, and like, she's like a VP in a big company. That's amazing. Like, that's so cool. And then my dad is like free all the time, doing stuff. He's like doing things, and he's out, and he's like on the phone all the time talking. Yeah, he ran like a trucking company, and it's just like two different types of careers that I watched. Whereas like with Gavin, like his family ran a shop, and everyone kind of like, it was like a legacy in a way. Like, well, you're just going to run the shop when you're older, basically. And you were being like trained to be an optician. So, sorry.
Yeah, when I first dropped out of school, my grandfather was like, "Well, you're not going to school right now. You should just come to the shop every day, and we can train you." Like formally, it was like an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
And I think you need like 6 months of that to take the eye exam or the optical exam.
Yeah.
And so I was starting that, but I kind of didn't enjoy it.
No. But yeah, I mean, so I watched my parents just have like their specific struggles with their independent work lives. And so I didn't consider either of those options. I wanted to be a doctor, and I was very good in school. I wasn't a great student, but I did very well on tests, and I was in like all the AP classes and all that stuff. So I was like, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be an oncologist, and I'm going to study cancer. I don't know why. I'm going to treat people. And eventually I realized like that would be a bad existence for me, because that would be too emotionally unstable. But as I got older and older, like maybe senior in high school, I felt less and less stable with that idea. And I kind of stopped being super interested in that around the time when I met him. And because I went to college, but I didn't like apply to any of my dream schools, one of which was Cornell, which is funny because Gavin is from Ithaca. And I really wanted to go to Cornell to study pre-med. And I was just too afraid to. So there was something in me, I was like too afraid. And I was like, I don't know. So I just went to a state school and was taking prerequisite classes to get to that point where I could transfer out and get into a pre-med program. And then I met Gavin, and he derailed. I guess. But yeah, I don't know. He just like opened a door to a different set of options, I think, that I hadn't really considered, because while I was very interested in science and math and like all of that stuff, I also was taking art classes since I was 5. I've been painting, and I was in AP art also, and I really loved that, but I just didn't believe that I could do it, even though I was really into it. But I was like, that's not a thing. You can't make money doing it. So in advertising, and I don't know why it just didn't occur to me that I could do the artistic side of advertising. I didn't have to be like the account manager like she was. Anyway, long meandering story. Gavin got me also on that message board. Yay, hooray. I lurked around. I started watching all these people coming up with these crazy ideas, making them, having art shows, making money doing it, like feeling fulfilled. And I was like, man, that looks really cool. Like, what am I doing? I had a real crisis, I think, at 18, 19. And then we decided we're going to go to art school together. That's insane. My parents weren't super happy about that.
Yeah, I was going to say that seems like something your parents would never want to hear.
No, we moved across the country together.
What art school did you end up at?
So it was actually the cheapest, like real art school.
That really diminishes the value of it. It is a very nice school.
It is. It's a great school. it just so happens to be, most art schools at the time were 30,000 a year, and
Yeah.
this one was about half of that. So
it was
that was a major decision.
Pacific Northwest College of Art, PNC.
Okay.
Very lovely school, very small and very like focused.
Yeah, but it was great.
It was nice.
And it was also in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah, we kind of wanted to live in Portland.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. We made a strategic decision to use the time in college to build our portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's what the point is, but it was more like we knew we wanted to start a studio together. We knew we wanted to, or at least like start freelancing right away, because we had seen it. We had seen it on that forum. Like that's how people were living in Brooklyn, and they had these amazing, like our dream designers were all working out of this place called Rad Mountain in Dumbo, I think it was, or it was like
Gowanus, maybe. Yeah. But it was a collective of,
like all like the cool guy designers, and we were like, oh my god, they're so cool, and we were obsessed. And Gavin had that threadless, just like the clout, so he started reaching out to people, and people would respond, and then became friends with them, and then like we'd go back to New York City, like, because I'm from Long Island, and so we'd come back all the time and like happen to hang out with people, and then it was like we knew we could do this as a career.
it made it feel achievable that there were these younger people that were very amazing designers, artists, illustrators, and they were making it happen, with freelance through their own practice.
Yeah.
And they didn't rely on a job, necessarily. They were relying on clients.
I mean, eventually everyone did get a job, which I think is so. I mean, I do think that that's something that we should point out, because I think that the Dataland story of like some of us getting jobs and leaving and then coming back and then leaving and then coming back, it's just like that's how that works. Like small businesses, small studios, it's okay to get a job every once in a while, and it's okay if there's like a really cool opportunity and you can keep the thing going. It doesn't have to die along with getting a job. Like it can just take on a different form every once in a while, and I think that's like the beauty of owning something like that. But anyway, all those like years of like basically studying what other people were doing at that young age, and while we're still in school, and like being supported by student loans and like partially by like my mom, who was like, you have to stay in school, you have to, and like making me, it was good, it was better, like that gave us the time to figure out like how to craft kind of a career that we'd want to hopefully achieve at some point. And then Gavin was just like, yeah, I'm out of here, I'm gonna just work this, because that, what I mentioned earlier about Microsoft,
my former boss.
Yeah, that was our former boss.
Yeah, he had moved to Portland, and he had just founded a motion design agency called Nervo, and I was like, whoa, he was my favorite designer.
Yeah, Gavin was like
for years,
obsessed.
And I saw he moved to Portland, and I was like, oh, amazing, I'm gonna email him about an internship. And then I got an internship, and then that turned into a job, and
you were called an art director, and he was like 20, 21 or something, 20.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my god.
Wow. That's incredible though.
So
yeah. So I mean, then once I got a job, I was like, I don't need to continue school, because I have this, I can spend 30,000 or I can make 30,000, there's a big difference.
Yeah, well, that is what the salary was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it made sense at the time. Again, my parents not happy. My boyfriend was quitting school, and I was staying out there, and they were like, okay, well, at least like, can you just come back home? I'm like, I have to finish school. You guys told me I had to finish school, so I'm good.
Liz the Rebel. I want to jump back because the football facts are too enticing. So, what's your earliest moment with data, Gavin? And kind of what sparked that journey for you?
When I was 10 years old, I think 1995, my family had gotten me this NFL sports almanac. And basically it had like it was like, a 500-page book, and it had the entire history of football basically in the form of stats, So every season stats from every person, all their players, etc. And I would just study that. I would memorize like all of their stats, the records. I would just be deep in that book every day. And I don't really know why. I think I was like picking out my favorite players, and I was trying to like craft a special team based on different eras.
Like early fantasy football.
Yeah.
Before fantasy football was a thing.
And, maybe it was because I was, playing video games and I was crafting my teams there. But, yeah, so I was just really deep in that for a long time. And I somehow memorized like a lot of those, although I don't know them now. At the time, I was just so deep in it.
I mean, when I met you when you were 19, you had you had so many books. And I was like, what is this? I was like, oh, these are just the, and they were like worn out books. I'd be like, oh my gosh, are you okay?
We all have our dark secrets.
I know, it's just like, bro.
At least it's not like a jar of fingernails from...
Yes, that's true. It's true. Yeah. They were very well worn though. So I was like, you might be addicted to data. Like, there would be like notes in the margins. It was yeah.
Yeah. Hockey as well, in 1995, 1996. That was a pretty defining year in sports for me personally, and just my consumption of those stats and numbers. And yeah.
Still passionate to this day about football and hockey?
I mean, yes. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. I mean, we got the nod from Liz, so it's yes.
Yeah. I guess it's been, a lifelong journey of being attracted into finding myself like, oh, I'm in this data, in these stats. Why am I so interested in analyzing them? And to not, when I was younger, to not understand how to like translate them into visuals. So, part of our draw to data, part of my draw to Datalands especially, is like, oh, I really like data, and I guess my whole life I've sort of really liked data too.
Yeah,
and
I've
been studying this.
Here it is.
Yeah. So, it kind of made sense. I was like, okay.
But I mean, I think the crafting the teams basically based on the stats is kind of like you were crafting a visual, because you're sorting through. I mean, this is the brand marketing side of me. I'm like, well, actually, you were like parsing through all those numbers that anyone would just like look through and be like, well, these are just weird numbers. I don't understand any of it, like me. And then you're looking at them and you're like, no, this is following a pattern here. This person, I'm going to pick them out. They have elevated themselves to me. They have revealed themselves to me in this mystical way. And then you're like pulling that person out, and then you're pulling another one out, and all of a sudden you have like this like little like graph.
It is kind of a
people.
Yeah, visual.
Just looking at the time, we don't have too much of it left, but I do like to try and end on some fast and fun questions. We can try and answer them fast, or whatever comes out will happen. But I think my favorite question to ask is, what is one book, movie, or show that has transformed you as a person?
The Holy Mountain by Alejandro Jodorowsky. An older movie. I think that was very defining when we were in college. I think I discovered it, and And it was so visual and crazy and wild. That was pretty defining and pretty big.
So for a book, it's not really a book, it's a series of graphic novels, but by Adrian Tomine. He's a graphic novelist. I think when I discovered his work, that was when I was like, okay, I think I really found something that like I really love. Just from like the illustrator side of me. Like the work that I would love to do or like be like as clean and clear as his style is. It's like what I would aspire to. It's very different from the work that we do at Datalands, but it is much more close to like how I want to draw in
Gotcha.
my, like in another life, I would be an illustrator, great illustrator.
Yeah, there are these like meticulous, deep stories. I don't know that come through. I forgot what I was going to say, but they're very immersive visuals.
Yeah,
and very emotional, and there's just so much that's conveyed from the image.
Yeah, he has like just a beautiful way of drawing things. Very simple, very clean, but they're I don't know. I just like his style and his way of doing things. So, and I met him, and I was I turned into a ball of mush. I've met a lot of like interesting people, but that was like I got really nervous.
Oh yeah.
Signed my book. I was like, you're like one of the reasons why I decided I could even do this.
What's one thing that you're doing outside of work that's really fueling you up?
Maybe a year and a half ago, I've started woodworking, and I've built out this little woodworking shop in my garage, and for a good while, like I was spending 2 hours a day, I'd say, out there, every day. And it was so valuable to get outside of the computer zone, to get outside of your normal creative process, and to be working on these things that you have to figure out, but there's a clear end goal in sight, and like, you're using your hands and you're moving around, and you have to learn as you're going through the process. And eventually then 2 weeks later or so, you have something physical in your hand that you've made, and it's very rewarding, and it kind of shows you it's a more it's just a stronger way of viewing. It connected me more with the process of creating, where it wasn't so abstract and so conceptual, as design typically is, as data visualization typically is. And so seeing the creative process in that different way was really helpful.
I get hobbies, and then I do them for a couple weeks, and I get really into them, and then I find another hobby, which isn't great. But usually those are like whittling, and then or like lino cut, and I buy all the stuff. I get all excited about it. It's very very TikTok ADHD thing, but it is my personality, and that's okay. I own it. I think, but like an actual hobby that I'm like actually pursuing is really exciting. Is that a podcast that I'm doing?
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, because I think that's the first time because there's like, if it's on me only, I won't continue with something because there's no motivation to do so. But having something that is bigger than me is, I don't know, I find it really exciting. I like talking to people, so I think it's like it marries a couple of like of the things that I like.
What is the name of the podcast, and where can people find it? It'll be in the show notes as well. So
it's called Ladies Who Create, and you can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Beautiful.
Yeah, there's like, I like the YouTube videos. I think they're a little bit more dynamic because we're I don't know, a little more subtle with Gavin is not on it,
Yeah.
so I apologize for anyone who wants.
Well, it's ladies who design, so
Ladies
Exactly.
ladies who agree. So we're on Twitter and not on Instagram, but we should be on TikTok. I think that would be a good idea.
I just have to say thank you so much for your time today, and I really appreciate you kind of, one, sharing the whole Datalands journey, for you to take this plunge into kind of the public light, I'll say, and share that. I know a lot of people have been asking for it, so it's exciting to share it with them. You guys have a huge fan club.
No, but yeah, thank you for the opportunity, and it's been fun.
Yeah.
No, it's been a blast. I've really, really enjoyed it. And I think if I were to summarize the course of the episode, it would be, don't be afraid to tap into your entrepreneurial spirit, to create something while you still have a job, or you're doing something maybe that isn't like your true thing, but you can jump in and out. Seasons change, and in what you're building is probably a lifelong legacy of work. So continue to do it at your own pace and your own grind. That's, I think, a huge takeaway, is probably niching down to your specific desire and niching to something that you really enjoy doing. And that could be something that takes a lifetime to kind of find and hone in. It doesn't have to be Gavin's stats at age 10 and falling in love and figuring that out along the way. It can be something a lot more complex. And then I think leaning into like what you love and showing that and expressing that, and not being afraid to work with others to co-create that vision.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And not feeling like there's an age limit on, I mean, I think we're still pretty young, but like just over a lifetime of work that left to do, it's just like there's no hard stop. Like when you hit 30, it doesn't mean that you have to have been, climbed the ladder up to this point. Like, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. And like, after you get to a certain point, you realize maybe you spent too much time being worried in your 20s, and maybe you needed to just chill out a little bit and let things happen and say yes to things. And that's like my new rule, is saying yes to things and being okay with what comes and just trying stuff out. And
I mean, that seems like some beautiful words of wisdom to end with, but I want to open up the opportunity if there were any kind of final closing thoughts that you had for the audience.
I would just say keep going.
Yeah.
Because it was the same track, and this is where it led. So it was all right.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's nice.
So keep going, and remember that we're all legendary and we have an amazing story of our own. So on that journey, take the time to be kind, grind, and unwind, and let's make the world a better and more creative place to live. Liz and Gavin, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to show me the lands of data and guide me through your journey. So thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
This is really fun.
Oh.
And I feel like we're best friends now. And
Pretty much.